to read Hebrew, and specifically to learn to read from the Siddur. Of course, when you can read from the Siddur, you can pretty much read from anywhere. But as we will discuss, once you can read from the Siddur, it also then opens up the whole world of reading without vowels, but that is something that will come later. So in a sense, this is a continuation of of the course that we kind of finished last week, which was the course on the Siddur. I think I can say that I find that the davening is much more meaningful when you can read the Hebrew. I can't say if that's the case, if you know, because I guess I'm not going to teach you to understand every word. That will be a much bigger, more ambitious project. But at least the reading in Hebrew, I think, really deepens your experience of prayer. So I hope that this course will allow us to deepen our involvement in prayer through being able to read the Hebrew. So everybody here is on different levels. Some people actually read Hebrew already. One of them is Marian, who was my guinea pig last year under lockdown. So I already took Marian through this using this particular book. So we've got a good idea, Marian and I, of what works and what doesn't in the book. Other people here learned Hebrew, for example, as a child, or have known Hebrew but need brushing up. Other people are starting from scratch. So the way I'm going to approach it is I'm going to assume that we're starting from scratch. Those who already know Hebrew will either assist me, which I'll appreciate, or they will just revise and brush up on whatever came before. So my intention here, and I don't want anybody to feel in any way intimidated. It's not easy to learn something new, but actually what you're going to find is that it is not nearly as hard as it looks. And I think what I kept saying to Marian last year, Marian, you're welcome to chip in, is that you will be absolutely amazed that within a few months you'll be reading from the Siddur and it will be as if you have always done it. Is that right, Marian?
That's absolutely correct. I couldn't believe it that just after a few months, I was looking at the Siddur with a totally different outlook when I suddenly could recognize the prayers and the words, and it was just amazing. Thank you so much. Really, it was just so amazing.
Fantastic. So basically, a few people on this group have said to me that they feel intimidated in some way or worried about the course. Actually, the truth is that you've all done things much, much, much more difficult than learning to read Hebrew, and do things like that every day. And it will be an absolute pleasure to teach you to read Hebrew using this book. So the book that I'm using is a book called Teach Yourself to Read Hebrew. It is available on Amazon. It's quite an old book, and I know that because I bought it to teach Lulu, actually. So that must be a good, at least 10 years ago. It is still available online. It is still available from Amazon, but actually the book is not perfect. There are a couple of things about the book that I don't like and that I change as we go along. And I think the best thing is that I will just ask Jacob to distribute these lessons, which I've copied from the book. So I have undoubtedly broken the copyright rules of the book and the world, and I hope that it will be taken in the spirit in which it's being done. Okay, so
we also got the whole copy of the book that you used, that we went through last year. So I've got the whole thing, so I can also photocopy the whole thing.
Fantastic. And we can make it available to everybody. And then what you can do is go through in between lessons, just go through some of the lessons. Today, what I hope to do is to do lesson 1. I have, when I photocopied today, I've taken out bits that I think were less helpful or less relevant, remembering my experience with Marian. So we might even also get through part of lesson 2. But let me start with a trick question. What language am I speaking if I use the word alphabet?
In what Latin?
Latin?
Greek.
What else?
Greek.
What else? English?
Well, of course, English.
Well, I tell you, that's the answer.
Hebrew.
So the word alphabet, alphabet, which is a word very familiar to each one of us here, is a word that comes from the Hebrew. How do I know that? Because it says
Alphabet.
aleph,
Yeah,
the alphabet, the alphabet
interesting.
is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and bet is the second letter of the Hebrew alphabet. The word alphabet itself is a Hebrew word, aleph, bet. The first and second letters. Also, you could say A and B, except they're not really quite A and B, but they're pretty similar. Now, the lesson doesn't start with the aleph, because it turns out that the aleph is quite a complicated letter. So it starts out with these 3 consonants here. So there are 22 consonants in the Hebrew language. And what is really unusual about Hebrew, compared with, I think, almost every language, perhaps with the exception of Arabic, is that the vowels in Hebrew do not appear as part of the alphabet. So in English, we know, there's vowels, A, E, I, O, and U. Those are the vowels. Everything else is a consonant. But the vowels are part of the alphabet, as are the consonants. In Hebrew, a funny thing happens. In Hebrew, the vowels are not in the alphabet. And in fact, in Hebrew life, for example, newspapers, road signs, anything beyond a primary school level book, there are no vowels used. So vowels in Hebrew are sounds which are inferred. They are understood to be there, but they are not written. So although I read Hebrew quite well, and I've been reading Hebrew for many years, if I pick up a newspaper in Israel, I battle, because no newspaper would dream of putting a vowel in the paper. It is something that is only for primary school children and foreigners. A road sign, or if you go to a menu, none of those things ever have vowels. The vowel is understood. How does it become understood? Because over time, your brain learns that, yes, that's what the vowel must be. And the vowel is not even a letter in the alphabet. The vowels are a series of dots and dashes, which are placed underneath the letter. Underneath and not in the middle of. As you'll see, there are a couple of exceptions. Some of the vowels sometimes appear in the middle of the word, but on the whole, the vowel appears below. So what we are going to do in lesson 1 is we are going to learn 3 letters, by which I mean 3 consonants. And we are going to learn 1 vowel sound. So the 3 letters that we are going to read, and by the way, unlike the Siddur class that we had before, I think it would be fine for people to interject. So if something I'm saying is not clear, please either use the little hand button if you know how to use it, or just use your voice, unmute yourself, or wave if you have something you'd like to question or say. But I am going to give people a chance also to read. So we are going to learn 3 consonants, 3 letters today, and they are the ones that you see at the top of the screen there. And what they are B, Sh, and T. So let's go down and have a look at them. So these are the 3 letters that we are learning today. B, as in boy, Sh, as in shape, and T, as in tall. Those letters are called, not that you need to know this, the bet is a B, the shin is a sh, and the taf is a t. Now, the funny thing about Hebrew is that sometimes you have 2 letters that have the same sound. So there is also another t, which we will learn later on. But here we go, your first 3 letters, b, sh, and t. Now, I do want to say that a dot in Hebrew can be a significant thing. And you see in the middle of the b, of the bet, there is a dot. That dot is important, as is the dot on the top of the sh. Can you see on the right-hand side of the sh, there's a dot that is also significant. So your first three letters, b, sh, and t. And actually all we're going to do in these classes is we're going to learn the consonants, 22 of them. You've already learned 3. You're going to learn the vowels, and then lo and behold, you'll be reading. Hebrew is very, very phonetic language. Your first 3 letters, b, sh, and t. Now, we're going to learn our first vowel. And the first vowel, and I'll explain to you now why I crossed something out in the text. So they're firstly telling us that the vowel sits underneath the letter. So you see those 2 X's, those are just meant to be placeholders for letters. The vowels in Hebrew sit underneath. Can you see the little pointing hand? Is it on your screen? Great. So the vowels are placed underneath. And the way you read Hebrew is firstly you read down. And only after you've finished reading down do you read across. And we'll come to the point of the direction in which you read. But the first direction in which you read is down. So what do? You take the sound of the letter, and then you take the sound of the vowel, and you simply put them together. Our first vowel is ah. Now they say ah as in yacht. Oh, I don't think that's right. I think it is ah as in up, or ah as in Shabbat. So if you say the word, just say it to yourself, Shabbat, Shabbat. The vowel that you're using is ah, Shabbat. So it's expressed as an A here, and it's often expressed as an A, but the sound is not really A. The sound is ah. Nor is it really a U, because there is a different vowel for oo. The sound is simply ah. So I just want to ask everybody, you can stay muted or you don't have to. Just say to yourself, ah, 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 ah.
Ah, 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 ah. Why is there a dot in the middle of the sh?
This one over here.
No, the first one. The bet.
The bet. Because Rita, if it doesn't have the dot there.
It's another letter.
Another letter, it's a V.
Oh, okay, please. Yeah, I remembered something like that. Thank you. And in Greek, B and V are the same word anyway. Thanks.
Okay. So the bet, the B, has got a dot in. And as we'll learn later on, if that dot is missing, it actually changes the sound. Yeah. Similarly with the sh. If that dot moves to the other side, it becomes a s instead of a sh. So that's why I say these dots are significant. But for today, we just have to know that there are 3 letters, b, sh, and t. And there is one vowel, but the vowel can take 2 different forms. It either is like a little T, or a little, what would you call that? A little T. Or it's a straight line. They both say the same thing, ah, ah. So I've said here, it's either ah as in up, or you could also say it's ah as in Shabbat. Shabbat. Ah, ah, ah. Okay. So we have now our first 3 letters and our first 2, or you might say 1 vowel, because it's the same sound, exactly the same sound, whether it's the longer one or the shorter one. There's some words in which that sound is pronounced a little bit longer than if it's like that, but it's really a matter of degree, and we come to that later. So how is Hebrew read? You simply take the sound of the b, you add the sound of the vowel ah, and you say ba. You say sh, ah, sha. You say t, ah, ta. Ba, sha, ta. So what have we learned? We've learned that there are 3 letters so far, B, Sh, and T. And we've learned our first vowel, which is either this little T or just the flat line, which both says the same thing, Ah. Ah as in up or Ah as in Shabbat. And we've learned that you read Hebrew first of all downwards. B, A, Ba. Sh, A, Sha. T, A, Ta. So this is the template for the reading of Hebrew. Once you understand the Ba, Sha, and Ta, then almost everything else is going to follow very easily from that. So let me pause.
Why is there a difference in the vowel as a T and as a line? Is there any reason for the distinction if it's the same thing?
You know, Harriet, the answer to it really lies in the history of the language. But in the use of the language, there is practically no distinction. Okay. I say practically because sometimes this vowel has an exceptional life in which it takes the sound of an O. So the word kol hakavod, kol is with that letter, the A. And you just learn that in certain words, when you see that, it actually takes the form of an O. But it's a small number. You'll learn them later. These 2 sounds at some point in the history of Hebrew probably had a distinction. This perhaps was a slightly longer A, and this was a slightly shorter A. But for our purposes, and for almost all purposes that you will ever have to have, other than when I point out an exception, there is nothing to worry about. There is no distinction to be made. It's A, A, A. So I want to just, yeah.
Would you ever have a letter beginning a word with a short stroke instead of the T? It's not connected with the beginning of a word or a sentence?
I don't believe so. I don't believe so, not that I'm aware of. I don't. So I think the thing to know about these 2 vowels, which are really one vowel with 2 forms, it's a variant, if I put it that way. Don't think about it too much. It's just Ah. The thing to remember about it is Ah. Ah as in up, Ah as in Shabbat. And then these 3 letters, B with the dot in the belly, Sh with the dot on the right, T. So how do we read this? Ba, Sha, Ta. And really, folks, once you've got these 3 things, you practically learn to read Hebrew automatically after that, because all you have to do from now is you have to learn to recognize more of these 22 consonants, and then you have to recognize a few more vowels that go underneath, and everything follows from that. And that's why it's actually quite easy to learn to read Hebrew, even though it looks very intimidating. So any questions on Ba, Sha, and Ta? Okay, so I've said that the first way that we read Hebrew is downwards. So any Hebrew reading that you do, you look at the letter and then you look at its vowel. So you have to take your eye from top to bottom. But then that's just going to give you one letter with its sound. What you then need is the whole word. So how do you read Hebrew once you go beyond one letter? Well, the funny thing about Hebrew that you will have noticed from the Siddur is that you read Hebrew from right to left. So in English, we read everything from left to right. Here we go. I'll show you here. When a Hebrew vowel, when you look at that sentence, when a Hebrew vowel is written underneath a Hebrew consonant, you are taught from grade 1, you start reading on the left-hand side of the page. In Hebrew, it's the opposite. You start reading on the right-hand side of the page, which means that when you read Hebrew, you first read down, so sh plus a, sha. But to get to your next sound, you don't go there, you go there. So you read Hebrew first down and then across, and the across is right to left. And that's why you open the Siddur on the other side. And that's why, you look at a page of Hebrew, it starts from the right and it moves to the left. So Here we are. We're going to read Hebrew immediately. What we're going to do now is we're going to read this line. And the line we're going to read starts with number 1. So it starts on the right-hand side of the page. And it starts with simply the sound. I want to hear everybody, so please unmute. What is that sound?
Ba.
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 Ba. So that's just the letter. It's got no vowel with it. So we simply say ba. Ba. Now what happens, and maybe now I'll just ask people to, I'll just call on people. What happens, Reva, when you say ba plus a? Can you read that second one for me?
Ba.
Thank you. Harriet, can you read the third one?
But
Ah.
In other words, ba a, ba.
oh, I see. Ba. Okay. Ba.
That's right. So the way you read it is simply ba. So this one, ba plus a equals ba. This one, ba plus a equals ba.
Ba.
This one, ba plus a equals
Ba.
this is just the letter.
Ba.
Peter, can I ask you to read this one? Peter,
Oh, me, sorry, ba. Ba,
Right. Good. Marlene, read that one.
ba.
Brian, read that one.
Ba.
Who else haven't I called upon? Other Peter? If other Peter's still there. Other Peter Joffe, please read that.
Not there.
Ba.
Thank you. So we started with the letter B. We added a vowel. And the whole line says the same thing. Ba, ba, ba. We skipped that one because it doesn't have its vowel. Ba, 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 and ba. So all you do in Hebrew, you take the sound of your letter ba, you add the sound of your vowel a, you combine them, you get ba. Right, same story here. What's this letter, please, Cassia? And then please, Cassia, put it together with its vowel the next time. Sha. This is again sh. Reva, what's this
Sha.
one?
Sha.
This is again just the letter sh. Marion, give us this one, the letter plus the vowel.
I've got something ridiculous covering over it. I can't see.
It's a sh plus an a, so it must be
Now,
sha. I'm just seeing who I haven't called upon. Who I haven't called upon, what's that plus that? Sh plus a, sha.
Ah.
Sh plus a, whoops, yeah, see, I'm now moving it, which I didn't mean to do. Sh plus a, sha. So the whole line is the same. Sh, well, that's just the letter. Sha, 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 and sha. So, ba, 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 and ba. Sha, 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 and sha. I'm going to ask all of you to mute, and I'm going to ask you to read with me from right to left. If what you say sounds different from what I say, then we need to speak. So this is just the letter. It's the sound T. And then say with me, ta, 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 letter T. Ta, 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 ta. Everybody getting the same sound, ta, in all cases. T plus a, ta. Good, now it's getting hard because now we are going to mix all three of these things. So, can I have a volunteer to read the first three letters?
ta, sha, ba,
Thank
ba,
you.
sha.
Thank you, that's enough, that's three. Now I'll ask for another volunteer to read the next three. Jacob, maybe?
Where are you up to?
Sorry, can you see my hand here?
Yes.
I don't know if you can see that. Okay, so I want someone to read 1, 2, and 3.
Ta,
read-
sha, ta.
Okay, but what's that one again?
Ba, sha, ta.
Well done. Ba, sha,
Sha,
and ta.
ta.
Good. Now I want to volunteer for these last 3.
Sha,
Sha, ta,
ba,
Sha,
ta,
ba,
ba, ta.
ta.
very good. Now, so what I'm hoping that everyone has now is the following understanding. That is ta, sha, ba, sha,
Da,
ta,
ta,
sha,
sha,
ba,
ba,
ta.
ta.
Okay.
ba.
So now that we've learned to do that, we are now going to learn to do something slightly more complicated. So I want to just check, is everybody happy with this line? Ta, sha, ba, sha, ta, sha, ba, and ta. Do you see the logic of how the language is read? Now we're going to do something a little complicated, but you'll soon see it's actually easy. So the first one is easy. It's, let me hear you, ta.
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 Easy. Now we've got something very complicated. We've got 2 t's next to each other, a t and a t, and we've got a vowel underneath. So what we do is we read first down and then across. So ta,
Ta,
Tat.
ba, ba.
No, tat.
so this word, let's stick with this one, is tut.
Ta.
Ta, the first letter, and the second one is the sound ta.
Ta,
So you read first down ta, and then you read across ta, tut.
Tut.
Similarly, bab,
ba,
Ba,
bab,
sh,
bab,
Sha,
sha,
Gosh.
and so let me go through it again, because now you're learning to do something different. So I hope what your eye is now doing, your eye is now going down and across, because this is basically a word. It's a word. So instead of just reading one letter, you are now reading a word. In order to read a word, you have to go across. So you say tat, bab, shush,
bab,
shub, and shut. Okay, now what I want you to do is, if you've got that logic, I want you to mute yourself, please, and see if you can read to yourself this line, the one that starts here. Please mute yourself and read aloud to yourself this line. So I hope that you've now read that line to yourself. And I hope people won't mind if I ask them, if I pick on you and ask you to read. The only reason I'm doing it is because I want to be sure that you understand. So I'm going to ask that Reva reads the first word here.
bash.
Excellent. Harold, can you read the second word? Harold, can you Peter Joffe, can you unmute and read this word?
Harold's reading.
Peter, we can't hear you because you're muted. Harold's going to unmute. There we go. Peter, read this word for us.
Which Peter?
Sorry, Peter Joffe. Sorry, Peter Joffe, can you read that word for us?
But.
Excellent. Peter Hunter, can you read this third word for us?
Tush.
Excellent. Now I just have to adjust and go down. Okay. Taurai, can you read this word for us?
Hold on. Tab.
Excellent. Jacob,
Oh wow!
you did it. You've read your first word in Hebrew.
I'm shocked.
You got it. Jacob, would you read this word for us?
Shop.
Excellent. Marlene and Brian together, can you read this word for us?
Hush.
Excellent. So now we are going to give others a turn as well. I think, sorry, I just need to adjust my screen so I see more people. So I think Harriet is the only one who hasn't read in this cycle, or maybe Casey hasn't read in the cycle. So I'm going to ask so I'll take you first in the next round. So the next round is simple because here's the beginning of the next line. So this letter we all know says sh, and sh plus a must be sh. Now I'm going to ask Casey to read not the third but this fourth word over here.
Shub.
Shub.
Shub. Now I want to ask Harriet to read, I'm going to skip down to here. I want Harriet to read this word and I'll tell you now why I've skipped. But Harriet, could you read that word for us?
Bush.
Excellent. So everybody has got the basic concept, which is you take the letter plus the vowel and then you read from right to left. Now we make things slightly more complicated using this word. So this word is sha and sha. Sha.
It's a dance.
Right. Sha ta, which is shata. This one is sha ba, which is shaba. So now let's go to the second line. Ba, ba, baba, bash, ata, basha, and ba. So now I'm going to pick on people individually. I'll do the first one because it's the easy. It's the letter tough. It's ta, ta. Okay, now, Taurai, can you read this third one for me?
That's tata.
Ta, you got it. Reva, this fourth one.
Tush.
Peter Hunter, this one.
Sorry.
Tasha.
Excellent. Reva, this one.
Basha. Sorry, let me just give me a minute.
Sure.
Ba.
Baba. Excellent. Peter Joffe. This last one on the line. Tasha. Excellent. Marlene, this first one of the new line.
Shav.
Shab. Brian, the next one of the line 4.
Shub.
Excellent. Who hasn't read in this round? Maybe Harriet?
Bab.
Bab, that's right.
Bab.
Bab. And then let's go on Reva. Give us this one.
Chat.
Good. Marion, give us this one.
But
Good. Now, I want to tell you, all of these are nonsense words, right? Except, what did you say, Marion?
but
Ladies and gents, you've just read your first word in Hebrew. What is bat?
daughter of.
Daughter of bat mitzvah. Daughter of the mitzvah. Bat. There's your first Hebrew word. Bat. Tat. Right, now let's go on to lines 5 and 6. So let's read all together. You can mute, but let's read line 5 together. Shaba. Bash. Shata. Tash. Bata. Ta. Ba. And let's carry on with line 6. Sha. Shab. Oh, so now, ladies and gents, maybe let me pause to say now we have something even more complicated. 3 letters. So all we're doing is we're combining what we've learned before. Sha, we read downwards. Sha, and then we read across. Sha, shab. Sha, shab. Ba, shab. Ta, shab. Sha, shat. Sha, ba. Line 7. Ba, bash. Sha, bash. Ta, bash. Ba, bat. And your first word, but. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask everybody, while you are muted, to read this first word of line 8. First word of line 8, please read to yourself. And then who is going to volunteer to unmute and tell me what that word is?
Shabbat.
Shabbat.
But.
Shabbat. You have just learned to read the word Shabbat. You can now read 2 words in Hebrew, Shabbat and
Bat.
and then the next one is again the same thing,
Shabbat.
Shabbat
Shush.
and Shabbat.
Shabbat.
So now what I can say to you is you can read Hebrew.
But.
No,
Yay.
2 words.
No
2
comment.
words of history.
No comment.
the whole rest of the course is easy because all we do now is we add lots more consonants and we add a few more vowels. But the method of reading is exactly the same. Shabbat, bat, Shabbat, Shash, and Shabbat.
Like Hillel.
Problem is to get your eye familiar with the shape, which consonant it is.
That's right.
That's a challenge.
So let's just, so the rest of this lesson is just the way it's written in the book is they invite you to write these words. They invite you to write them because they point out that once you learn to write it, it makes it kind of easier to read it. I'm not going to concentrate much on writing, but I am going to send you this PDF, which means if you feel like learning to write, then do so. Because certainly it will help you to read, and also it's fun to be able to write Hebrew, and you will be amazed similarly at how quickly you learn to write Hebrew. That's all it is. You take the ba and you form it. You take the sh, you form it. You take the t and you form it. So then what you would do is take your ba and you'd put your vowel underneath. What does that say? Ba, ba, ba,
Funny looking, ba.
ba, 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 ba. And then
Yeah.
really, the only thing left to say is just a repetition of what came before. So
Now, can I ask a question?
please do.
So these vowels that are all underneath, they all have the same sound, excepting once in a blue moon, the ba becomes a or. Why? What's the choice of just having one line or a T line?
So it's just the history of the language, probably because at some point these were 2 different sounds or 2 slightly different sounds. But it's just, when you look at the Siddur, some are with the little T and some are with the flat line.
So there's no formula like on line 1, there's the show with the T underneath it and a show with the line underneath it. There's no distinction between the 2. There's no logical reason.
Is it a spelling mistake? If you use the wrong one, is it a spelling mistake?
Yeah, I guess that if you are at school, you write the word Shabbat, and you could have those vowels wrong. I guess they'd take off a half a mark. I don't know. But I won't take off half a mark. And the important thing is you will hardly ever in your life be called upon to write vowels.
Sure.
Even if you're called upon to write, which you probably won't be, but even if you are, you won't write with vowels because people don't write with vowels. And my aim here is to get you to read the Siddur. So all I want you to know is that when you look at the Siddur and you see the little T or you see the flat line, it's the same thing. It's Shabbat. So for our purposes,
And not to read it phonetically as I've been doing all the time.
yes. So just say So again, what do you see here? Sha, ba, sha, ta, ba, sha, ba, ta, and ta.
Ta.
If you see anything different from what I'm reading, then you must tell me because we must correct it. Shash, tat, bab, shash, tat, bab, shat, bash, hab, and shab.
Tab.
And then if we go, okay, so that's lesson 2. So really what you've learned in lesson 1 is you've learned one vowel, although it has 2 forms, it says the same thing, and you've learned 3 letters. So let's just revise it quickly. Here are your first 3 letters, B, Sh, and T. You've learned the sounds of those letters. Secondly, you've learned that in Hebrew, the vowel does not appear in the alphabet. It appears as a little sign, and the sign almost always is underneath the letter rather than in the middle of the sentence. So the vowel does not have a place in the alphabet. It does not have a place in the alphabet. It doesn't appear in the alphabet. We've learned our first vowel, which comes underneath, and that is A. It has 2 forms. They both say A. How do we read Hebrew? We read Hebrew firstly by combining a letter with its vowel. How do you combine a letter and its vowel? You simply put them together. You say B plus A is Ba. And that act of combining is what gives you the ability to read. B, A, Ba. Once you have done the thing of combining the consonant with its vowel, B, A, Ba, you carry on reading by moving from right to left instead of from left to right. And so what you do is you say ba, 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 sha, sha, sha. Or if this was, okay, so let's use a slightly more complicated one. So here is a word. It's got 2 letters and 1 vowel. So first you combine the B with its A, ba, and then you move across from right to left, ba, bash, bat, bat, tash, tab, shab, bash. Now you are reading Hebrew. And then you might even come across now a 3-letter word, shashab, shab, ta, shab, shashat, babash, shabash, tabash, babat, bat. And there you get to read your first 2 Hebrew words. Bat, the daughter of, as in bat mitzvah, and Shabbat. Shabbat. Sha, ba, a, t. Shabbat. Bat. Shabbat. Shabbat. So, ladies and gents, it's taken us 45 minutes, and basically, you now know how to read Hebrew.
Wow.
Well, why does
That's
That's optimistic.
When
Yeah.
you read the phonetics and then you read the Hebrew, you actually get a better pronunciation of the word.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
we
we'll,
have-
yes, Riva?
You know, I know this is irrelevant, but I'm sorry, that's how my mind thinks in irrelevancies. It looks so beautiful written there, but by God, when you look at the hand, the sticks, it's so ugly.
Mm.
Yeah, so, and you know, that's just printing.
Yes.
Wait till you see the cursive. So
It's
cursive,
Oh my
Cursive
goodness.
in
the
Hebrew is
cursive
another whole
is
other thing.
unbelievable.
exactly.
and,
This
and you
is
actually
beautiful.
have to learn
but those
cursive. You have to learn the alphabet all again when you do the cursive. The letters are different, so it's another whole drama. But
don't
luckily,
even
from
Wait.
the point of view of the Siddur, we don't have to worry about cursive and we don't have to worry about writing. All we have to worry about is the mechanical thing. Combine the letter and the vowel, sha. Combine the letter and the vowel, ba. And
do you-
then once you've combined the letter with a vowel, read across. Shush, tat, bub, shush, tat, bub. And all that we're going to do for the next however many weeks it takes us is we're going to add more letters and more vowels and do exactly the same thing, which is why I say it is not difficult to learn to read Hebrew.
Do you think it is as good
So
to
maybe
learn the shape of the letters by reading them over and over and over on the screen instead of writing them and writing them? I've been in that class where they made us write them and I didn't learn a thing. But if I look at the letter, it'll go into my mind better, or doesn't it matter?
I think it's probably different for everybody. It depends on how you learn. I remember when Casey and I once started Hebrew at some point in lockdown, we wanted to write everything down. I said to her, don't worry about writing. She said, no, I want to write. And I think, Casey, there you go, you're writing. So I think it depends on your learning style, Reva. I think some people like to be able to form the word themselves and write it, but you don't have to. The great thing.
I think and learn in images. So maybe that's why I didn't learn before. I left the class. I didn't like all the homework to write.
That's so that's all you got to know. Shat, bash, tash, bash, hub, and shub. Now, what we'll do next week when we go to lesson 2, although I'll send out lesson 1 and 2 together in case you want to look at it before, you don't have to. Next week, we'll learn some more letters. This one we've already learned, right? That's the bet. Next week, we'll learn this one, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, and Dalet. These are the first 5 letters of the Hebrew alphabet.
What is that first one?
That first one is called Aleph. Aleph is a very interesting character and a slightly weird one. I'll just say quickly as a preview that Aleph, believe it or not, is a letter without a sound.
That's what I thought.
What does that letter say? Absolutely nothing. Why on earth would you want a letter that says absolutely nothing? Because sometimes you need to just say the sound of the vowel.
Oh,
So if you have the little ah underneath the aleph, then you simply say ah instead of ba, va, ga, or da. So we will learn all of that next week. But what you have learned today is the basic methodology of reading Hebrew, which is that you combine a letter with a vowel, and then you move across from right to left. Now that you know how to do that, it is simply a matter of learning to recognize more consonants, more of these characters, so that you know what sound they make. This is why small children can learn to do this, because it isn't difficult. And then you will also learn to do a couple more vowels. Like next week, we'll learn the sound E. E. And then all that remains for you to do is to combine letters with vowels, letters with vowels, letters with vowels, and to carry on reading. So that by the end of next week, I'll just show you this as a preview. By the end of next week, you will be able to read a word like that, which might look very intimidating to you now, but it isn't. And I promise you that this time next week, you'll read everything on that page. And then the following week, you'll read more, because all we are doing is we are learning to recognize more letters and more vowels, and to apply the same method that we learned tonight. Combine your consonant with your vowel, b, a, ba. If it's b, e, it's b. And then you read across from right to left. That is how you read Hebrew. All the rest is detail, which we shall learn in the next couple of weeks. I shall send this out so that everybody can see it.
Nice. Thank you.
Congratulations, everybody. You've learned to read Hebrew, b, sh, t, and we learn more each week as we go along.
on the
Thanks,
contrary,
Val.
Graham, congratulations to you for teaching us the simple method. I've tried before years ago. And Marion will tell you I didn't do well because they wanted me to do all this homework. I think that was stunning. Thank you very much
Thanks, Val.
to everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Super. Thank you.
Lots of love, everybody. Lots
Bye.
of. See you on the webinar tomorrow if you like. Otherwise, see you soon.
Yeah,
See
see
you
you tomorrow.
Bye.
Oh, so
Women in Reform today.
it's-